Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So it's the middle of July and I've got a new seed delivery. So I'm going to start getting planting. I know it's getting quite late on in the season, but I'm not planting for stuff that I'm going to harvest early on in the summer. But this is stuff that I want to keep me supplied with fresh vegetables all the way through autumn and into early winter. So I'll show you the seeds that I've got. This is the raised bed that I made recently. And all we did here was we just put some cardboard down, we put loads of wood chips down and loads of compost on top. And straight after I made this bed, I put the video out recently. So I planted some aubergine, some loofah gourds, I've got some spinach here behind me, a tomato, lots of fenugreek down that side. And now, what we did a couple of days ago, we harvested our onions from this bed just here behind me. You can see some of the onions that I'm saving for seed that have left to carry on growing. But now I've got some empty space there, so I'm not going to leave that empty. I'm going to get planting straight away, and I've got some new seeds. I'll show you what I've got. So I've got these onion Stuttgarter. I'm not going to sow them yet. I'll plant those onions out in early autumn and I'll overwinter them. I've got some lettuce winter density and I'll get those sown very soon. What else have I got? So I've got some kohlrabi, some turnips, more kohlrabi, purple Vienna, some amaranth, some cabbage January King, some cabbage Primo, pak choy, and I've got some komatsuma. I've never grown these before, and I don't know if I've even pronounced that right. So I don't want to let this bed rest too long. What I'm going to do is I want to get planted straight into it. So I'm just peeling back the mulch. So I'm just going to fill this trench with some compost. I'm going to get planted into here. The plan is to go for about this sort of distance of kohlrabi, and I'm going to start off with planting purple Vienna. These are a lovely purple type. It's a good time to plant them now, because if you plant them now, what they'll do is they'll germinate really quickly. Within a space of a few days, you should see some little sprouts coming up, and then over the course of the rest of July, August, they'll start maturing into small plants. September, they'll keep growing, and then they'll keep giving you that harvest all the way through winter. They're a quite frost tolerant plant as well, so they will do really well. So I'm just going to plant them like all brassicas. They do like a fairly fertile soil, so I'm just planting them about 6 inches apart. There we go. So one into there. That's fine. I'm just going to keep making rows until I fill this little area of the bed, and then I'm going to move on to something else once I get a little bit further on. So I'm getting a bit trapped in the middle here. So what I'm going to do is, while giving me some space to manoeuvre, I'm going to plant some cabbage over on this side. So I've still got onions planted here. So what I want to do is I want to get the cabbages planted in the middle of all this smelly plants. So I've got lots of onions on either side. I've got lots of fenugreek down that side. So the smell will mask the cabbages while they're growing. They'll keep away pests like cabbage butterfly, and they'll keep away aphids and stuff like that. That's the theory. So far this year, it's worked really well for me. I haven't had any aphid attacks this year, apart from a few green fly in my greenhouse, and that's not been that bad. A bit of soap spray and that sorted that out, but I've been very lucky this year. So let's hope that this method keeps working for us. So these are cabbage January King that I'm going to get in now, and again I'm just going to plant them about 6 inches apart. And what we'll do is, as the young plants come up, we'll leave a few. We'll probably leave 3 here and take out the younger ones as young greens. Take out the young ones as young tender greens and leave the other ones to grow, because cabbages grow they do take quite a bit of space. And I'll put another line in here as well. I mean, I'm going for sowing direct this at the moment, rather than planting, sowing in modules and then planting out. But you could go that way. I mean, if you were a little bit early, say in the middle of June, then that's the way I would have probably gone. But because of how late we are in the season, I'm just gonna sow direct like this. But this time of year it's fine. I mean, it's fine for what we're growing. Just firm it in. And as we finish off with these onions, what I've got some plug plants that I'm just going to start plugging in place as we're taking things out. I mean, that's what we're doing. These onions that I've got with the flower heads on, I'm leaving them to grow and produce seeds for next year. And the ones that are bolting out of the onions under there, anything that bolts, we just pick that and use that, and then just leave the other ones to carry on growing and carry on fully maturing. So that's some cabbage and kohlrabi purple Vienna planted. Where I'm sitting now, I think I'll get something else planted as well. So I'm going to plant some turnips into this spot here. If I can ever get this packet open. And these ones I'm going to plant about 4 inches apart. I'm going to harvest them quite young. So now all that I'm left with is the place that I'm sat on. So I don't know how I'm going to manage planting underneath me, but let's have a go at that. So this is where I grew my first early potatoes. We finished harvesting those yesterday, and all I've got left, and what I've done with the mulch that I grew the potatoes in, is I've piled it onto my main crop, and I've pushed my main crop back, so I'm left with this space under here. Because this is getting quite a bit of shade from my gourds growing over the top, and my peas hanging down from there, what I'm going to do, this area should stay a little bit cooler than anywhere else in the garden. So because it's going to stay a little bit cooler, pak choi are notorious to bolt quite quickly. So this should provide a small microclimate that's a little bit cooler for the pak choi to grow. So that's what I'm going to plant here. I'm going to plant this pak choi. I'm going to make a few drills down here. What I've done is I've just added a bit of compost. Yeah, I shoved all the mulch up at the top and then added a bit of compost onto this bed, and just to prepare it. So I'm just going to direct sow some pak choi here. 1, 2, 3, and again we're going to go quite close with these, about 3 inches apart. What you can always do by growing them quite close is you harvest the younger plants as baby plants, and let the ones a bit further away mature and grow a little bit bigger. And these pak choi, Canton Dwarf is the variety that I'm planting. So they're a white pak choi. I couldn't find the red pak choi seeds this year. I had loads of pak choi seeds, but I don't know what's happened to them. I seem to have misplaced a lot of seeds this year. So like I say, we are growing a little bit close. What we're going to do, the pattern that we'll maintain is when we harvest we'll leave one there, we'll harvest that one, we'll leave that one there, we'll harvest that one. So then you'll have like a zigzag pattern. So it'll give the pak choi that space to keep on growing and maturing. So now what I'm going to plant is, I'm going to plant some kotsuma. And exactly the same. These are a beautiful red leafed vegetable, and they're another brassica, and they're one of the Asian greens. So they're quite cold tolerant. Yeah, we'll do a thin sowing of these because they're quite frost tolerant and cold tolerant. You can sow them You can sow them all the way up to September. So that's quite a nice little advantage of these seeds. I might even try and overwinter some of these vegetables in the greenhouse. I'll get the hotbed going again. We'll harvest the compost that's in the hotbed and we'll fire that up with fresh manure and get that cooking again. Now that my seeds are in, I'm just going to lightly cover those rows back up with the compost, and we'll be good to go. I don't understand what's going on with this bed. This is normally my best bed of the whole garden, but this year these onions just don't seem to be doing anything, and these are onions grown from sets. And again, I normally do really well with onions grown from sets, but these onions, I just don't understand what's going on with them. Right, just pull one and have a look. The onion looks absolutely fine, but for some reason this bed is just not putting on the size. And this bed always does well for me, so I just don't understand what's going on with it. So into this row that I've prepared, what I'm going to plant is I'm going to plant some coriander, and I've sprouted them exactly the same way that I go about sprouting. I always sprout my coriander wrapped in a wet tea towel or a wet cloth. And I'm going to plant these quite thick, because what we do is we thin them out, we harvest the young ones and let the older ones grow up and mature and fill the gaps. So I'll get that covered up with some nice bit of compost over the top. So there we go, that's more coriander planted. What else have we got on our list? Let's go and have a look. What else are we going to plant? We're going to get a fair few things planted today, don't worry. The last seed that I'm going to plant today, I'm going to call it a day after I've planted these. And these are another kohlrabi, but these are super schmelz. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, put one there. One. You got two seeds, put one there. Not both of them. Okay, fine. And again, I'm going for about... I want to eat it. You want to eat it? Yeah. There you go. So again, I'm going for about 4 inches apart, and we'll harvest some baby ones. Zaki's had a little bump, so we're going to call it a day now. We're going to leave it there. Meow. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there for this one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.